The best way to get better at programming is to practice. So here's a sample we can practice formatting numbers and formatting output to make it a little bit easier for our end users. This file is available in a link in the description below, and you can pause this video to practice on your own and then check your answer. Alright, so let's go ahead and see what we're going to do. We have some sample output, and what I'm going to do is create a variable. I think this is a good way to work with this because variables allow you to change the different values you might see. So I have a variable name for my widgets, and they're going to have a price. Notice that my price is a floating point number. It's not in quotes. So let's see how we can print this out. Well, I can say print name, comma, price. And if I do that, you'll notice that I have widgets, my name, a space, because anytime I have a comma, I get a space automatically, and then I have a price. However, my price is not right justified, and if I were to have another print statement, maybe for sprockets, we're definitely going to be not aligned, and so we want to kind of fix that real easily. There's a couple of different ways that we can do this. I'm going to show you them just so you have different ways of solving the same problem, and if you see online examples of code, you'll know how you can solve them. First, we're going to look at the format command. Now this is a special function. It's going to take a variable. It can be a value that's a literal value. In our case, we're going to pass in price, a variable. And then it's going to have a format specifier. This is how do we want it to look. So I'm going to say point2f. Now you might be thinking, well, what does point2f do? Well, if I run this, you notice it's exactly the same. Well, let me change this up real quick. Add a couple of smaller values to my price. So now instead of being 45.32, it's 45.3219. Notice, however, when I run it, the printout is still 45.32. That 0.2f says treat this as a floating point number and show 2 decimal places. If I were to change this, I might have, for example, 10.2. Notice it now gives me additional space. Okay, so it's giving me 10 spaces to put that number. However, we're still only separated by widgets by a single space. So how could I solve that? Well, I can come over here and say SCP. This is inside the print, and this is a special type of attribute that we can send to our print function. Equals, by default, that parameter, as it's technically called, is a space, but we're changing it to a tab. Now, it looks to be basically the same. Where you see this change, however, is if I have different values. So, real quick, I'm going to come in here. And we'll change, for example, sprockets. Now, you're going to notice that sprockets went further. That's partially because it probably went beyond that first tab space. If we do this again, but instead have gauges, you'll notice that it doesn't. And my top and bottom lines are lined up with the numbers. So sprockets went further because it went beyond that tab limit. That's something we always have to look at. What is our limits? We have other ways of solving this, but this is just an example. So sprockets might cause an issue for us. We could do other things. For example, if we know that gauges, for example, is small, we could do a extra tab in it. Now notice that sprockets and gauges, the numbers line up. For where we have on line 13, its name and it's small, I could have, for example, a null string that we're going to put. but because it's separated by the comma, it's going to add an extra tab. So there's a couple different things that we can do to help us line things up. The format command is great for helping us with numbers, the sep parameter, as well as sometimes occasionally passing in extra strings or extra values to the print command is a great way for working with strings. But let me show you one other way that we can use this formatting. We're going to change up this format command just a little bit. And that is, I'm going to give a format string. This says, how do I want to format? So notice I have the $, and then I have my little curly braces. The curly braces will be replaced with the format. It's going to look for commas if we need to have a comma, as well as 2 decimal places. The fact that we have a $sign in front of our curly braces means that it's going to print out the $sign as well. And you'll see it's like this. If I type in a 10 in front of my comma and I run it, you notice that it's going to give me 10 spaces. My $sign is still left justified with that block of spacing that was provided, but it still allows me to be lined up on my right-hand column. If I come in here and change my price and run it again, you notice that my right column is still lined up and it went in and added the comma for me. So these are just a couple of quick and easy ways that you can go in and format strings and format numbers to make working with them a lot easier in Python.